This racist treatment of Bill Cosby has to end once and for all. We as American citizens, we got to speak out mainly against DA Kevin Steele, as well as, we can't say Pennsylvania Court of Appeals or the judges because they helped to release him, but the DA's got to go. He needs to be called out. For him to go to the highest court in the land, to want Bill Cosby, who's 84 years old, to be placed back into prison, it shows you the kind of individual he is, and he can't take the loss. And this is because he knows that he got elected to be DA because of his goal and his promise to convict Bill Cosby. So I'm going to talk about this in just a moment, as soon as I do this. Your girl, Miss Analytical, is back, like I said I would. And I'm here to talk about this Kevin Steele obsession with wanting Bill Cosby to be placed back behind bars. So, according to Variety, it reads, Pennsylvania DA appeals Bill Cosby's ruling to U.S. Supreme Court. Kevin Steele, the district attorney from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, who put Bill Cosby in prison in 2018, has filed an appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court to reinstate the disgraced comedian's conviction. Cosby was released from prison back in June after the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled that former prosecutor Bruce Cantor's decision not to prosecute Cosby in 2005 should have prevented him from being charged by a successor DA in 2015. In the petition to the U.S. Supreme Court, Steele's office called the Pennsylvania court ruling a dangerous precedent. A prosecutor announcement not to file charges should not trigger due process protections against future criminal proceedings because circumstances could change, including new incriminating statements by the accused, the prosecutor's office argued. Cosby, 84, was convicted in 2018 and was sentenced to 3 to 10 years in prison for sexually assaulting Andrea Constand at his Philadelphia home in 2004. He served nearly 3 years of his sentence before his June release. The DA's petition to the Supreme Court argues that the Pennsylvania ruling raises issues under the Constitution's due process clause. In a press release accompanying the filing, Steele argues the question presented to the court is where a prosecutor publicly announces that he will not file criminal charges based on lack of evidence, does the due process clause of the 14th Amendment transform that announcement into a binding promise that no charges will ever be filed, a promise that the target may rely on as if it were a grant of immunity? Cosby's spokesman, Andrew Wyatt, issued a statement blasting the prosecutor's office for asking the Supreme Court to throw the Constitution out the window. There is no merit to the DA's request, which centers on the unique facts of the Cosby case. It has no impact on important federal questions of law, Wyatt said. This is a pathetic last-ditch effort that will not prevail. The Montgomery County's DA's fixation with Mr. Cosby is troubling, to say the least. Constand reported the assault to police in January 2005. A month later, the then Montgomery County District Attorney Castor issued a press release stating that his office had decided not to file charges in the case. Cosby then gave deposition testimony in a civil lawsuit Constand had filed, in which he acknowledged giving quaaludes to other women. Constance eventually, I want to stop right there. The quaaludes that he gave to women was common back in the 70s. In the 70s, quaaludes was a top drug. It was legal. It became illegal in the late 80s. So I want to make that clear. I have a lot to say about this. Constand eventually settled the suit for $3.38 million. But in 2014, dozens of women, some of whom had accused him for years, came forward with similar allegations to Constand's that Cosby had drugged and sexually assaulted them. Steele was elected district attorney in 2015, having criticized Castor's handling of the case during his campaign. Cosby was charged in 2015 December. Cosby's attorneys argued at the time that Steele's office had ignored Castor's promise not to prosecute. They also contended that Cosby would have invoked his Fifth Amendment right not to testify in a civil case if he believed he was in danger of criminal prosecution. The trial court held a hearing on that issue and found that Castor had not actually made such agreement. Castor had pointed to the press release as the written record of the agreement, though the release does not include language about immunity from future prosecution. Cosby's first trial ended in a hung jury, but he was convicted at a second trial in 2018. Prosecutors used Cosby's deposition testimony in both trials. In June, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned the conviction on a 6-1 vote, finding that Cosby had relied on Castor's promise not to prosecute when he gave his incriminating deposition testimony. Since his release from prison, Cosby has largely remained out of the public eye. He's done no high-profile interviews, and despite Wyatt's promise, Cosby hasn't announced a return to the stage or any future projects. Now, what I will say about Variety, even though I disagree with what they put in the admittings of him saying that he was giving quaaludes to women, I do like the fact that they did include the petition for a writ of certiorari. I can't pronounce it for anything, to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. Other Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, Middle District, I do like that they submitted that to the U.S. Supreme Court. They have that included. I want to say that. And I want to say that you can look this up on Variety. You can basically read it. You will see the laws that they cite. And this is a common way that people submit briefs who are legal professionals. Before I say this, I want to make it clear. I'm not going to make this long and talk about the history of the case, because if anybody has been following my channel, you've been subscribing, listening to my content going back to 2018, I've been one of the YouTubers that have stated that Bill Cosby should not be convicted. I've also said that I don't believe that he did anything to this woman. I also believe that it should have been upheld. And I also want to make it clear, I'm not a stan of Bill Cosby, nor am I a fan. But I'm a person that believes in justice, and I do believe that right is right and wrong is wrong. If this man did go into this agreement and he did admit that he gave this woman quaaludes and it was an agreement that he wouldn't be prosecuted, it has to be binding. Now, I'm going to say this. Fuck Kevin Steele. Fuck the DA. I haven't heard any other cases that this man has prosecuted other than Cosby. And it's almost as if he was placed in position to do just that. I don't even think it was necessarily him going out of his way to prosecute him. I think somebody put him in position to do so, because why would a DA only want to be remembered just for convicting Bill Cosby and having to go through this humiliation of the man being released? And you're writing this writ that you want him back in prison. And I'm going to keep it real with you. The highest court in the land ain't dealing with this, because they got a whole bunch of cases to deal with. They got to deal with the case, dealing with the mandates. They got to deal with so many other people appealing cases who are in prison. They're not going to put a man back behind bars. What case have you heard of the Supreme Court doing that? If you can name any, that's wonderful. But I don't believe it. The last thing they want to look like are a bunch of racists. And then you got Sotomayor. Well, I can't say that because women are a little bit fickle. He might do better, believe it or not, with the conservatives. Because believe it or not, it was the liberal media that helped to convict him. It really wasn't conservative media. I got to just keep that honest. But Kevin Steele, in my opinion, should be disbarred. And I'm going to talk about that right after I wrap this up. Because I really want to make this quick. I don't really want to talk about it too long. This man is 84 years old. He served time in prison that he should not have. Andrea Constand got $3.38 million. She got to see him be convicted, even though it's been thrown out. And she's coming out with a book to make more money off of this. To me, she's evil. I think she's a vile human being. And she lied a lot about this case. And then you have to also look, and then she too agreed to that because she also had to sign, stating that she agreed that the man wouldn't be prosecuted. So she broke the law too. I want to make that clear. Also, we got to talk about some of the other accusers who have come out with their absurd stories about new rape allegations. They changed their stories too. They're not credible. And I'm looking through the deposition. The appeal. I'm looking through the other authorities in this. I will say, as a person who graduated a degree in paralegal studies, I want to say I've always had a hard time pronouncing that word. It's the only legal word that I can't pronounce. But I've typed up and done research on appeals. And the one thing I learned is that you never appeal something that you know you're not going to win. Don't waste your time. And this tells me that Kevin Steele is an incompetent DA. He's incompetent. Take the L. You're lost. If the Pennsylvania Supreme Court of Appeals vacated the conviction based on that one thing by the original DA of this case, dude, you think the highest court in the land is going to be considering this with all the other cases on the docket? Dude, you need to be disbarred. You and your whole legal team. I might actually do a reading on this probably this evening while people are still up, because I know I upload early in the morning because of my insomnia. But I'm going to talk about Kevin Steele right after this. So I'm going to wrap this up. And I'm going to say, I do want to say one thing though. Andrew Wyatt, I think he's a good spokesman in terms of what he did for the case. But he gotta just be careful with saying certain things. Like saying that the man was going to come back and perform again and tour again and speak again. It made a lot of those people who wanted him in prison, it made them angry. And it was like smushing it in their face that win. You got to be a little strategic and be a little careful. And I feel as though that's what made Kevin Steele angry also. Also, we got to look into Vlad TV. You can't really trust Vlad. Notice how after that whole situation went down between Vlad and Andrew Wyatt and the other gentleman, Kevin, what's his name? It's not Kevin Faison. What's his name? The comedian. I can't think of his name. Faison Love. After him, Faison Love. And I don't think it was really any real beef. I think it was concocted by Vlad. Notice how after Vlad couldn't get that interview, look what happens. You got to watch out for Vlad. You got to watch out for him. And I think people need to stop going to channel. I think I'm going to do a commentary about that too. But first, I'm going to talk about Kevin Steele right after this. So I'm signing off for this commentary. Share, like, subscribe to my channel, comment, hit the notification bell, and I'll talk to you all real soon. Take care.